What's going on, everyone? And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Stateside Footy. I am, of course, your host, Steve Silver. And joining me tonight, the return to the podcast, the man that they call Stan USMNT on the old X machine, Adam Turner, joins me tonight. Adam, good to have you back, man.
Man, I'm excited for this topic. You've had me in research mode for the last couple days. Hour here, hour there. Went back and revisited a lot of the history that I've known. I looked this. I remember when I got into USMNT in the early 2000s. I looked up a lot of this stuff. What's the history of the national team? But you forget it over the years, So it's cool to go back and see some of the players and think about the guys I've watched, and then even some older guys. I'm excited to throw out there with you. I don't think they'll make my 11, but I'm excited for the honorable mentions, Steve.
Oh, I am too. The crazy thing was, I was thinking about this for, I don't know, about 2 weeks. And I was like, there's a few things that I need to do. Number one, I need to go back, just like you said, I need to go back. And for me, it's awesome because I'm a nostalgia guy. You know what I mean? I love watching old clips and stuff like that and just kind of getting back into those spaces. But the other thing was I needed to bring somebody on the show who not only understands the history, but also likes to talk a little shit as well, too. And it was a no-brainer, man. I reached out and you're like, fuck yes, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm really excited for this one. Before we begin, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button, but also make sure you hit the notification bell as well, too, because we have a lot of cool content coming out here on Stateside Footy. So definitely make sure that you do that. Quickly, before we begin, quick note, though, tonight in Major League Soccer, Atlanta United and Inter Miami are playing Game 3. I don't know if you've been paying attention, Adam, but I'll tell you what, the first round of the MLS playoffs have actually been absolutely straight bangers. There's also been a lot of upsets as well, too. Minnesota United takes out RSL, and, of course, the Red Bulls of your NYRB takes out the defending champs, the Columbus Crew, which was almost kind of a shocker. Before we get into this, man, quickly, what were your thoughts about the first round of the MLS playoffs?
The MLS playoffs literally never cease to not just absolutely smack. The MLS gets a lot. The MLS gets a lot of shit, including from me, right? To be honest, I give them a lot of shit, but the MLS playoffs don't miss, man. I was on with Will, I don't know, a month or two ago on MLS Moves, and I said that exact same thing. I was like, you know what? Regular season, you can kind of check me out for, right? I'll catch a game here or there. I'll watch some prospects, but I'm all in on the playoffs. It's kind of like baseball. I'm like that with baseball now, right? And I know you're a big baseball guy, Steve, but regular season, I'll check a couple of Yanks games. I'll go down to the stadium. But overall, I'm kind of following the box scores. I'm following the numbers. Same thing with MLS. But playoffs come around, and I'm glued to my TV in October. With baseball. And MLS is the same way. And that's cool. It's something to build on, right? As a league, they have a really cool playoff structure. It's very different than the rest of the world. It is a cup, right? But it's the cup dictates the champion, which is very odd in worldwide soccer, but it's very American. And I think it's great. And the games are always awesome, man. The only game I've really watched full end to end was the Red Bull game, and it was awesome. It was so good. I don't know, just very cool, man.
Well, anytime you can knock out the defending champs, it's it was funny because everybody was saying about the Red Bulls. It was funny. It's great, man. You made the playoffs for your 15th consecutive season. Great, right? I don't think anybody expected anything from the Red Bulls, and they go out there and just punch Columbus right in the mouth. I think I 100% agree with you, right? Because this isn't the English Premier League where there's storylines every single week and it's entertaining football. Where the MLS regular season, it's you can give and take that from week to week. But you're absolutely right. Once the playoff starts, it's everything is ratcheted up times 10, and all of a sudden teams that may or may not have been mediocre in the regular season, all of a sudden they're playing beautiful football. It's just amazing. I absolutely love the MLS playoffs. Dude, maybe not a fan of the playoff formats, but whatever, man. I'm
gonna go to best of three is just sick. I'm sorry, best of three with shootouts to dictate wins is so sick in high stakes soccer, where it's so much better than a draw. I just think it's way better than the two leg format. And I know purists will crucify me for that, but it's I agree. It's just a better deal than like a 2-leg format that carries over goal differential. I just think it's so much cooler to go, this is the game. This game matters. You can get beat 4-1 in this game, but it's just a game. You're not down 4-1 going into like
correct.
A lot of times 2 legs suck. You go into the second leg and it's like, oh, one team's down 4-1. Like this blows.
Well, my problem with the 2-leg format, and we saw this in former generations of the MLS playoffs, was that the better team would start on the road, and because they had the road goal differential, they'd be up 3-1 or whatever. They would come home and they would end up parking the bus in the second game. And that was the problem, because it always resulted in just a dud of a football game in the second. And it was like a formality of a game that didn't even need to play. You know what I mean? Because there was no chance for the team to come back. And with this best of 3, what I've been noticing is that you're absolutely right. Like a team like Atlanta United that probably has no business beating Miami can stretch it to 3, and you get the very best. Like Miami actually can't park the bus; they have to play. You know what I mean? So you're actually getting 2 versions of their absolute best. You know what I mean? That's, and to me that's awesome. Seattle and Houston played, and both of those games went to a shootout. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of a dud throughout the course of the game, but once it gets to the shootout, dude, it was an absolute banger. I
got one more point on it, right? You just right now you're sitting here. I am going to turn this on soon. Like you got Atlanta, Miami, right? And it's game 3, that's just awesome, right? Like you just don't see that in soccer. You don't see do or die games other than if it's just like a single game knockout or something. And it's a game 3. And like Miami has to go for it, right? There is no scenario coming into the game where like somebody can just like you said it. You can't just like sit back. You can't just let the game, like you got to go kind of get the game, like, and and you got to win. And if you're a worse team, you can't really park the bus all game. Like you're gonna have to play too, or you're gonna get beat. It's good. It's good stuff. I'm excited for it.
And we saw that in the Vancouver LAFC series, which was an absolute banger of a series. And unfortunately, we get LAFC in round 2. Not really looking forward to that because LAFC kicked our ass all up and down the pitch this season, but it is what it is. Also, news and notes, tomorrow we should understand the direction of which Mauricio Pochettino is going to go in for this 2-leg Nations League quarterfinal against Jamaica. So we're going to find out. We're going to find out tomorrow just exactly what's on Pochettino's mind. Is there anything that you're expecting from this roster drop, or is this going to be just pretty much what we think we expect to see?
Well, he's going to be forced, I think, to bring in some different 9s. I think, unless he's just going to play some different guys, from the same kind of core group at the 9. And then I think we'll see a couple names in there that are interesting. I can't predict who, but I think you'll get a very similar roster to last go around in some ways, but then 3-4 names, I think that'll shuffle, and you'll be like, in a couple of those, I think you'll be like, huh, like I think there's gonna be some not head scratchers, but like that's interesting. Like that's an interesting one. So, and I'm excited to see who those are because Poch's his opinion of players is gonna grow over time. Like we didn't really see him pick a roster with a ton of information.
Right.
And he's gonna have a little bit more information now. Like who shuffled out is going to be interesting to me because that's going to be guys that either in training or through their performances in games, probably didn't show him a lot. Right. I'm talking about healthy guys, not guys out with injury. So who was there last time that now isn't? And I think that's going to say a lot about probably how he saw those guys fitting into what he does in that first camp. And maybe they're out for a little bit.
Yeah. I'm curious to see exactly what he's going to do at the 9 position because Ballo and Sargent are out. It sucks. Josh Sargent had surgery, so he's out for 8 weeks, but he'll be back sometime early 2025, which means you're probably going to see a lot of Ricardo Pepi, I'd assume. Probably Brandon Vasquez, but who's going to be that third? Is that going to be a combination of Haji Wright and Brandon Vasquez in that, in that combination? It's going to be very interesting. If there's going to be any surprises, I always think that Julian Green is somehow going to be a part of this team moving forward because he's just lighting up the second Bundesliga right now, and it's not even funny. Of course, he got frozen out in the last tenure But I probably like if there's any surprises, it would probably be guys like Johnny Cardoso or Tanner Tessman coming in. But as far as like surprises like Green, I'm not expecting that. But the good news is we're going to get Tyler Adams back. We're going to get Weston back, and we're going to get Timmy Weah back, which is going to drastically change how this team plays against Jamaica. So that to me is just like a bonus. I'm very happy to see Weston McKennie back in the fold. Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So no more news and notes. We're going to get into this. For those that are tuning in, it is the all-time USMNT starting 11. And I love this because we, like Adam and I, go back. You know what I mean? Like I've been watching the national team essentially since 1990, which I would consider the new era of U.S. men's national team football. Right? This team has been around since the 1930s. Of course, they played in the 1950 World Cup, had the greatest upset in World Cup history when we beat England, but that wasn't the modern era. The modern era begins in 1990, and I would probably assume our USMNT starting 11 probably goes to that 88, 89 into the 90 World Cup era. So I'm looking forward to this. But the first question I have for you, Adam, is how are we doing this? Are we doing this by formation? And if it is by formation, what formation are you starting? Are you starting at?
Yeah, I mean, I picked a form. Did you pick a formation? I picked a formation.
I did.
A base formation.
I have two different formations that I can go with.
Yeah, I picked a base formation, and my base formation, which is going to shift in and out of possession, so I'm not going to go that deep with it. My base formation is like a 4-2-3-1. You could shift it to a 4-3-3. It's very similar, right?
Correct.
Essentially, you've got in a 4-2-3-1, you've got that line of three, right below the striker, and your outside guys are, outside mids or wingers, right? Whatever you want to call them. And then you've got a more creative kind of playmaking 10. And then you've got two central midfielders. Could be a double pivot, could not. But once again, you could shift those three. I have three midfielders, right? And what you could do with those guys can shift game to game based on who the opponent is, right? If we're playing Germany in a quarterfinal and Germany has a handball that's uncalled, we're probably going to play that differently than if we're playing, an island nation in a group game. So you get my point, right? But for base 4-2-3-1 is where I'm going. How are you going with this, Steve?
I'm going with the base 4-2-3-1, although you're absolutely right. It doesn't necessarily matter. But from that standpoint, it just makes the most sense to do that. Quick note, Freddie Adu will not be a part of tonight's broadcast. I mean, I love Freddie, but, I don't think he necessarily checks all the boxes for the all-time USMNT. Neither does Graham Ducey or Chris Wondolowski. So for all those Wando guys.
I shouldn't put Wando. Let me delete Wando.
All right.
Wait, I thought you wanted biggest disappointing potential goals in USMNT history. I'll never get over that Wando. I'll never get over it.
And while, by the way, and while Tyler Adams probably will get the start, he will not make the start in my lineup tonight. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. All right, let's start at goalkeeper. All right, goalkeeper. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go honorable mentions, and then we're going to go starter.
Okay.
All right, so first and foremost, you'll kick it off tonight. Honorable mentions, sir.
I've got a list of honorable mentions. If I had to pick one, mine would be Friedel. I think you make a pretty good case for him being the starter. I think his performance in 2002 is probably the best overall performance. He saved 2 PKs. Yep. He was just stood on his head multiple times. Like he was really, really good. Like people think back to that Portugal game where we got up 3-0 in that World Cup, but like they were like they could have won that game 6-3. Like people forget that after the 3-0 start, they were like absolutely on us the entire game. And I think it ended up being, did they score 2 goals, right? 3-2. I think it was 3-2. But anyway, Friedel's phenomenal. He's my honorable mention. Well, you give yours and I got some other ones. I think we can go through a couple other names.
I have 2. Okay. And you hit on one of them, which was Brad Friedel. 82 caps total for the U.S. men's national team, 27 clean sheets. He was phenomenal. But his claim to fame is his penalty shot stopping ability. In the English Premier League, he had 10 penalty stop, 7 international. And you mentioned that Portugal match, but I'm going to go back to the 1995 Copa America And this was the quarterfinal match against Mexico. It goes to a shootout, and he had two unbelievable stops in that shootout to advance the team to the semifinals. Brad Friedel was an absolute maniac, but he doesn't crack my starting 11, and neither does Casey Keller. By the way, for those that don't know, Casey Keller had 103 caps. He was a part of 4 World Cup rosters: 1990, 1998, 2002, 2006. He is the all-time leader in wins and clean sheets. Does not make my starting 11.
Yeah, Keller was also on my list, and Tony Miola was an honorable mention for me as well. He's my avatar on X.
Yep.
And he was like my guy, Jersey guy. He was my introduction to, I was a keeper growing up, and I was in 4th grade during that 94 World Cup. And he was like my guy. To be honest, I didn't even know any other keepers worldwide at that point. I watched that World Cup and I played goalie. I was like, who's the US goalie? It's this guy with a mullet. That's my guy. But Miola was good. Miola was a really good player too. And deserves a shout because he was very good in that 94 World Cup.
Not only does he get a shout out, but I push back on some of those guys that that kind of throw some shade at him because he never played in Europe. He had opportunities to go in Europe, but he never did because of personal issues. But that being said, he was a part of one of the best MLS teams ever. And I think it was the 04 or 05 Kansas City Wizards where they went wire to wire and pretty much won everything. He's arguably one of the best USMNT goalkeepers of all time, no doubt. And he deserves nothing but praise, no shade.
Let me just say this about Keller too. If we were making a starting 11 based on club career, Casey Keller might be the number 1 guy. Like you can't sleep. Like for anybody who wasn't really alive and alert during that era, right? And it was slim pickings for all of us trying to find games with U.S. players back then. But he was like, Leicester City, Tottenham, Mönchengladbach. Yeah. Like he played all over Europe, right? In big time leagues, and was like a big time keeper in those leagues. Like not like we'll get Casey Keller. Like people wanted Casey Keller. Like he was a big time club keeper.
But it's also worth mentioning, think about when he turned professional. Like it was the late 80s. We didn't have the domestic league. People forget that when the the NASL folded in 1984, there was no top flight American league. It was college. And if you weren't good enough to go overseas, then we had the MISL, which was the Major Indoor Soccer League. And it wasn't until like 89, 90 that the A-League came into existence. But even then, it was incredibly hard for U.S. players to get overseas. It was hard for them to even get attention in the United States, and he made it to the top flight of England. It's unbelievable, and I happen to agree with you. All right, so let's get into our starters. Go for it.
Yeah, Timmy Howard. I mean, he's the best I ever saw. And I watched Keller and I watched Friedel. Like I watched all these guys, and I was a keeper growing up, and it was a position I loved watching, and he's the best I ever saw. I mean, and Keller probably had a more illustrious club career, but like at his peak club, Tim Howard was phenomenal for Everton as well. Like a top 3 or 4 keeper in the Prem. And that's like real deal. Like he really was considered that at his peak. And I've never seen anything like that 2014 performance against Belgium. It was just like absurd. Like that game should have been 5-0. Like with they just kept getting chances, and he was just making absurd saves over and over again. And it felt like he did that for us for about 6 straight years, and really he was the keeper for us really during a very, very awesome period, right? 08 to 2014 was a great period in US soccer. And he's so good, man. I would, how much would we love to have him right now? Like it would just
100% without a doubt. My starter is Matt Turner. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, for me, it is Tim Howard as well, too. 121 caps, 49 clean sheets, 64 career international wins, 3 World Cups, 06, 2010, 2014. And then I think he also was a part of the 2009 Confed Cup. That was basically our closest opportunity to ever win a trophy on the traditional stage. But here's the crazy thing, though. Against the FIFA top 20, he was 10, 9, and 10.
Pretty
and that included wins over Germany, the Netherlands, and beating Italy in Italy. You know what I mean? Like he's got some pretty impressive wins on that. And you brought up, the round of 16 match versus Belgium in 2014. Have you ever seen have you ever seen that shot map, the Belgian shot map from that game?
Yeah.
And you look at shots on goal, on target from inside and outside. Dude, it's insane.
And they're not 17-yard shots. They're like 9, 8. Like it was like you're getting fired on point blank, 1-on-1. Like it was crazy. 330 caps, most capped keeper in USMNT history as well. Not for nothing, right? And listen, was the guy during the most successful elongated period of my lifetime, right? 08 to 2014 was the best we've been for like a stretch where we had like a core group that stretched out over 5-6 years, went to 2 World Cups, made the knockout stage in both, right? Got out of a group of death in 2014. Like you said, lost to Brazil. We were up in that Confed Cup final against Brazil, beat that undefeated Spain team. Like, and like we leaned on him, man. Like we were like, 100%. It was a good team. We weren't soccering people to death, like we were parking against good teams and leaning on our defense and on Temi.
Right. And when you think of the style of head coach Bob Bradley in that era, we were a defensive first team, defensive first counterattacking team. And you're absolutely right. We 100% leaned on Tim Howard for like a good 5 years. But the reason why he's my number one is I think about goalkeepers in abstract and I think about athleticism. And that's the one thing that Tim Howard had that Brad Friedel and Casey Keller and Tony Moyle didn't have, was the fact that Tim Howard was an absolute athlete in goal. Like his reflexes, his high level IQ between the sticks, man. Like that's something that we haven't seen in quite a long time. And you talk about Keller's longevity, but I also think that was one of the reasons why Tim Howard actually ended up having that type of career and why he was at one point considered a top 5 goalie in the Premier League with Everton. Dude, that dude's athleticism is off the charts. Yeah. So, all right, let's move to left back. Okay. So we're going to start with honorable mentions, sir.
Starting with honorable. All right. Let's be honorable. There's a couple positions through our history that aren't quite as deep. Left back is one when I kind of was looking at it, but Bocanegra was my honorable mention. Played a little center back in his career, a little left back in his career. And once again, just another guy who was a really good player that's kind of gotten forgotten in time. But he was a guy that was phenomenal. Who's your honorable mention?
Anthony Robinson. I think when it's all said and done, Anthony Robinson is going to go down as the greatest left back in USMNT history. He's already got 48 caps, 4 goals and 7 assists in a short amount of time. You look at his club career and you see exactly the impact that he gives with Fulham in the Premier League. There's a reason why he's rumored to Liverpool and Manchester United at this stage already. And you look at what he's done so far at the international level. Right now, I would think behind Christian Pulisic, our most important player probably is Anthony Robinson. And I just think as this thing goes along, he's probably going to be a 3 World Cup player. And depending on his health, would it be out of the realm of possibility to think that he might be able to get a 4th? Maybe. It just depends on a lot of factors. But just talent-wise, his ability on the ball, his ability off the ball, the fact that really he's a true wing back. So his scoring prowess, his ability to assist, his movement, putting balls in the box. To me, from the left back position, Anthony Robinson is legit. I think even at this stage, it's appropriate to list him as an honorable mention.
Yeah, I think we're probably gonna flip flop guys here. Should I go deeper on? I didn't go deep on Bocanegra because I wanted to see where you had him, and I didn't want to step on your toes.
Bocanegra's coming up.
All right, cool. All right, I'll hold the conversation. I want to go deeper on him, but I'll hold the conversation.
Yeah.
So
starters, yes.
Jedi's my starter, and I'm excited to talk about this with you.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
I tried
by the way, it's 100% appropriate.
No, and let me say this. I tried to balance like not just doing this based on career accomplishments, because you're always just going to go with older guys in that case, right? Maybe not Pulisic, right? He probably can compete. But I tried to really like analyze it based on especially guys that I saw, which is why honestly 94 is like, I've got one guy from that team on my squad, but I saw him play. He was a little younger then, and I feel comfortable enough because I saw him play, going forward after that as I got older. But a lot of the guys from 94, like they might be better. I just don't know it well enough. I didn't watch it, to be honest, like that, right? I was in fourth grade. So Jedi I've watched, Boca I've watched, right? And I honestly, like if I was like picking a team right now to go out and play, I don't think any USMNT left back, including Bocanegra, has been at a higher level than Jedi's at right now. And I just think he's playing such high level soccer, right? Like I was like very slow on like the Jedi top left back and not top, but one of the top. I was like, let's chill. And it's like at this point, honestly, it's been like 3 seasons of playing phenomenal soccer in the Prem. Like he's had 3 Premier League seasons now where it's like, well, the guy won't stop. You can't keep him off the field. To your point, right? The rumors that are out there, like, I don't know if he can really go play at some of those places, but certainly his name is a legit name for them. And left back's not a deep position in the world, so maybe he can, honestly, right? Like people just kind of want a solid left back at this point in time. They're like, who's solid? Who won't mess up defensively? Who's okay going forward, right? So yeah, man, it's a ceiling setter for me. I don't have many current guys. He's one of the very few to not spoil it. But let's talk Boca because I'm excited because it's a legit pick.
And by the way, he's easily a top 5 right now in the Prem, and I can actually make a case for top 3. Jedi is that good. He is that good. And he's consistent. I think that's the mark. That's the mark of respect right there when you can say that not only is he available, but he's consistent. And it's such a high level. My starter for left back is the guy who always gets overlooked. When you're talking about some of the greats of the U.S. men's national team, the guy who was solid, the guy who was always there, the guy who played in 4 World Cups, DeMarcus Beasley. And I understand that DeMarcus Beasley started his career higher up the pitch in the left wing area, but by 2009, he was playing left back, and I think he ended up having more games for the U.S. men's national team at left back than he did at left wing. 126 total caps, 17 goals, 17 goals from that position. World Cups 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014. Played in the Confed Cup in 2003, 2009. Dude, man, DeMarcus Beasley always gets overlooked, man. And it's a shame. It's a shame because the crazy thing is like when we talk about true left wing backs, he probably was the OG. You know what I mean? Like really, when you kind of think about, your ability in the attacking third, but also your ability to track back. He played overseas. He played in Mexico. Obviously, played in Major League Soccer. Very good club career. I thought he was better at the international level than he was with his club career, and I think that's actually saying quite a bit. When I think about stability at the left back position, the first name that always comes to mind is DeMarcus Beasley.
Wow, I thought you were going to go Bocanegra. Wow.
Nope.
Yeah, I love the pick, and I'll hold on my thoughts on Beasley because I've got Beasley somewhere, and we'll talk about it in a second.
Anthony in the chat says Jada Merritt. That's a good name. I forgot about Jada Merritt. All right, center back positions. All right, so there's 2. We're not going to get all in depth with left center back, right center back, things like that. Just 2 center back starters. Honorable mentions, and I'm going to start my honorable mentions. And the 2 that I have are Alexi Lawless, and I don't think Alexi Lawless gets. I think people see Alexi Lawless now, and they see they see the personality on TV. And I don't think anybody remembers just exactly how good Alexi Lawless actually was as a player. First American to play in Serie A, 96 caps, 9 goals, 2 World Cups, 2 Copa Americas in the 90s. That dude was a rock in the USMNT back line. My other honorable mention was Oguchi Onyewu. who was a part of that 98-99 that big talent pool that came out of that U17 World Cup of 1999 that had Landon Donovan and it had DeMarcus Beasley. He only had 67 caps, 6 goals, but was a part of that back line from 2000 to the 2006 World Cup cycle into the 2010 World Cup cycle, was a part of the Confed Cup 2009. But for me, like Oguchi Onyewu, his physicality, but plus his ability in the air, that dude was an absolute beast. He was a physical specimen. Plus, he also beat the crap out of Zlatan. He beat the crap out of Zlatan when they were with AC Milan. So there's the legend of Gooch. Who are your center back honorable mentions?
Lawless was on my list. I'm going to throw out a couple other names that some people I think have kind of forgotten. And both are actually 90s guys that one, I didn't watch that much, but I know a lot about his career just from kind of looking it up. And that was Thomas Dooley. And Dooley was a 94 guy. And, I think he was on the 98 World Cup as well. And he was good. He was like very solid. I think he had like almost 200 appearances in the Bundesliga, scored 20 Bundesliga goals. It was like a legit player back in an era where nobody went to Europe, right? That early 90s, we had nobody going to Europe. And he was a legit dude. Like he's one of those guys who like really started what the USMNT, you talked about that being the start of the modern era. And he was one of like the core guys that was one of the higher end players, totally forgotten in all honesty, right? Like doesn't even come up in conversations in my opinion. But love Dooley. And then the other one was Peter Vermes. And he's a guy who like, once again, another 90s guy, big, like start of MLS guy. And, like 70 appearances with the national team. I think I was looking up the other day and just a solid guy. So I wanted to throw a couple 90s names out there because a lot of people know, the more modern guys, the John Brooks, a couple guys we'll talk about. Yeah. And then I had Marcelo Balboa. I'll hold on it because I think you're probably going to have him starting and we can have that discussion when you get there. But I had Balboa as an honorable mention as well for me.
The only reason why I didn't have Vermes listed was his longevity at the national team level. It was a very short time. I'm not taking anything away from him because I definitely remember Vermes playing, and he was awesome. Like I'm not taking anything away from him. I just think in the scope of the all-time matter, I just don't think he was good enough to crack the starting 11 or get an honorable mention. But that's a good name though. All right, so starters at the center back position. My first one is Eddie Pope. And Eddie Pope, to me, like a lot of people consider Eddie Pope probably one of the greatest center backs that we've ever developed. 83 caps, 8 goals, played in 3 World Cups. Dude was physical. Dude was excellent in the air as well, too. And that's one of the things that our center back core right now, when you talk about heading into the 2026 World Cup and everything that's been happening in the last year and a half, one of the things that stands out is our center backs are very much absolute dog shit in the air. Eddie Pope was an absolute monster. And my second one was Carlos Bocanegra. And I know that he played some left back, but he also played a lot of center back as well too. I think he's second on the all-time captains list. And I think he had 47 caps as the captain. 110 caps altogether, 14 goals, played in 2 World Cups. And he is also a guy that doesn't get a lot of recognition, although hardcore USMNT fans definitely do give him a tremendous amount of recognition. For the center back position, I just thought he was locked down. I thought he was absolutely excellent. And, when we're talking about earlier about how how this in that era, how those teams relied on Tim Howard. A part of the process was that center back pairing, and Bocanegra was definitely part of that conversation. Yeah,
it's and he was I had him as my backup left back because he played a lot of left back in his career as well, and I think he's like a guy you can flex to both those spots, and it's really funny, like in that era, people don't like really remember this, but in that era, left back was much more similar to how we played our center back. Like you just didn't go forward with your fullbacks back then, especially us.
Correct.
Like we just weren't flying fullbacks up the field like that in the same way, right? Like now when Beasley kind of came in, a little different, right? He was a former winger, played wing most of his career at the club level. And like he did go forward more, but man, those like 90s teams and like early 2000s teams, it was like stay at home on both sides often, right? But yeah, so I like both those picks. So my starter, Pope, I want to touch up. Pope is a starter for me, for sure.
100%.
And I think that he's another guy. If people look up their career, they're going to be like, MLS lifer. Like, don't get it twisted. Pope could have played anywhere in the world. Like, that's a legit thing. Like, he absolutely could have. DC United, right? For those of you who aren't MLS history buffs, won 3 straight titles. And he's honestly the reason why, right? They had good attackers. You couldn't score on them. He was like a Premier League level center back playing in a startup United States league. Like it was really like that. Like he was so dominant watching. If I watched a lot of MLS when it first, started up because I was just getting into soccer at that time. And like he was big time. Yeah. And I think back on it now, and like to your point, he would start for this team, right? Without a doubt. He would like not only start, it would be like we would love having him. And if he was playing right now, prime Pope was playing now, he would 100% be playing in one of the best leagues in the world for a really good team too.
Yeah, he would be playing in the Premier League right now.
100%. I agree.
100%.
And then my other one was Gooch, man. And you said a lot of stuff about Gooch, but those are the 2 best guys I've ever seen. Just physicality, both solid on the ball. And like Gooch was that dude, man. Like
he was.
For me, in the same way Timmy Howard was that dude at the keeper position, Gooch was just that dude at the center back spot. And both of them are like the 2 most reliable guys that I've seen at that spot. And both had longevity, right? Multiple World Cups, lengthy eras playing for the national team.
Gooch only had 67 caps, but you're absolutely right. He was that dude. The reason why I had Bocanegra over it is people forget that dude had a penchant for scoring in big moments. Like his 14 goals from the center back position, it ranks first all time. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to set pieces, when it comes to free kicks, when it comes to corners, that dude had a penchant for scoring and giving the United States a goal when they absolutely needed it most. And I think a lot of people forget how clutch Bocanegra was. You know what I mean? That's why I had him ahead of Gooch. Because there's a couple factors. It's like, yes, obviously, defense matters, but also there's a couple aspects to this as well too. The ability not to play defense, but also being able to give you a goal when you need one. And that's kind of why I had him over him. But I agree with everything you said about Gooch, 100%.
Thing about Bocanegra, right, is also like and this is like the dude played 02, 06, I think all the way up to 2010, right? He was in that Confederation. I believe. Yeah, he was in that Confederation Cup team, right?
Yeah, Bocanegra was in 06 and 010 for those 2 World Cup cycles. And he was actually.
He was just after 02. He came in just. You're right. He wasn't on those. Yeah, and he came in right after 02, though, like very shortly, I think.
And he was a part of the 2003 Confed Cup. He was not a part of the 09 Confed Cup. But
he wasn't.
No, he wasn't. No,
I'm almost positive he was. What?
I can double check it. I don't think he was.
Yeah, he started in the Spain game. Yeah. Okay. I just googled it. Yeah, okay. Yeah. He started in that Spain. He's good, man. Like I think he played I'd have to go look at it, but I think he played left back in that Spain game. He was playing left back like a lot I think a lot of those goals were from left back. Maybe not a lot, but some. But he was good. Like honestly, like he's a guy that if you were like building an actual roster, a 23 man all time, he has to be on it just because of flexibility and like, to your point, like he could score from those spots. You can bring him in a different position, but it's funny. Like historically, center back's actually decently strong for us. Like it's a pretty strong position.
Now my question to you was he left back because it was natural, or was he left back because we didn't actually have a left back that was capable of playing? So they moved him from the center back to the left back.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair that he was there because of need, right? Not necessarily
exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So right back position, honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. Okay. I've got Serginho Dest on my honorable mentions already. Once again, I'm not talking about did he play 80 caps, it just who was he at his prime, right? That's primarily where I'm coming from.
And by the way, he's not in his prime yet. He's still young enough where he's 100%, not there yet.
Right? But the best we've seen out of Serginho Dest is a guy that, like, once again, if I was building a 23, which is a little bit what the honorable mention is for me, it's like, would he be next up? Would he be second to next up? Would he make the roster? Like, he's right there. But the big one I want to name, and I went a little funky at right back because, once again, I'm building my roster. I'm not necessarily building a team of guys that played at that position 100% of the time. I'm trying to build the best possible team with the pool. And it's Bocanegra. Or, sorry, it's Cherundolo. So, Cherundolo, and I'll save it in case you have him on yours. We can kind of talk about it when you get to him. But, like, the one thing I'll say, right, is, like, Cherundolo was just, like, absolutely Mr. Reliable for, like, a decade, it felt like. And he was a guy that, like, I always felt like we could lean on at that spot. Played very different than how modern fullbacks, once again, going back to that conversation, very different than, like, how modern fullbacks do right now, which is always up the field. You know, he's a guy whose style is a little bit more defensive, but he could go forward a little bit too.
Yeah, my honorable mention, I did have Serginho Dest, and I think it's totally appropriate. And it's the same thing with Anthony Robinson. And I understand that he's got the knee issue right now. He's going to be coming back, but there's a good conversation to have that if he can stay relatively healthy for the rest of the career, he'll be a 3 World Cup player for this team as well too. And I think he brings you everything that Anthony Robinson brings. And that's why, like, when full strength, our fullback positions are some of the best in the world. The other guy that I had honorable mention was Steve Cherundolo. 100%. He's got to be a part of this conversation. 87 caps. For me, like, when I think back on Steve Cherundolo, I think about consistency and reliability, right? And his ability 1v1. There were times where he was a shutdown back. Guys that were wingers that were coming into his area, a lot of times weren't able to get their crosses in. You know what I mean? His ability to man mark was so unbelievably high level. He was also, I believe he played the majority of his playing career in the Bundesliga as well too.
Yeah, he's called the mayor of Hanover, which is like one of the
there you go. Yeah, he's the mayor of Hanover.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite stories, Steve. And, like, I'm always like, man, can we just get, like, more players to go to the right club for their whole career and just be called the mayor at the end of, like, 12 seasons? Honestly, I'm like, listen, like, Pulley, just stay at AC Milan. Just become a club legend. You can't. I get that, like, you can go higher, but you really can't. Like, you're playing in the Serie A, you're going to play in the Champions League almost every year. Like, you're good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason why I stayed in Granite Falls in Washington for 12 years. They called me the city councilman. So, no, just fun. All right. So, and Cherundolo played in 2 World Cups, 2002, 3 of them, 2002, 2006, 2010. Dude, that's the thing. It's like health-wise consistency. Yeah, Cherundolo's got, like, I know a lot of people give him shade now as a manager of LAFC, and there might be something to that. But that being said, man, internationally as a player, club career as a player, Cherundolo was amazing. All right, so starters at the right back position.
I went off the board a little bit here. I put Beasley over there.
Fair enough.
For the same reasons you had him starting at left back. Remember, he's a naturally a right-footed player. He was playing left back in big part because of need, right? Same thing that you mentioned, before, right? We were with Bocanegra, like, we were trying to figure out guys to play there, and we kind of landed Beasley there in, like, a pretty cool way. You know who kind of I don't think we're going to need it, but he feels like Temi Weah-ish. Like, that's kind of
very
one of my Beasley comps, right? Now, Beasley spent most of his club career in the Eredivisie, playing at a level where he could really thrive when he was like a winger, and he was good. And that's kind of how I feel about Temi Weah. If Temi Weah was in the Eredivisie all these years, he'd actually be doing really, really well, right? He's trying to push himself, playing for higher level clubs, which is why maybe he hasn't played as much.
He would probably be one of the best, if not one of the best wingers in the Eredivisie. 100%.
I agree. Like, he'd be so consistent year in, year out. And that's like what Bees was. And then late in his career for national team, we put him at left back because of need, and he was phenomenal there. And for me, it's like all the things that made him phenomenal there would just make him phenomenal on the right side. And I don't, I as a two-way player, I take Beasley over Dest, right? Not maybe Dest gets, I think Dest should get there if he stays healthy.
100%.
But in terms of just being solid, you know, we're thinking about like we're building this team to go try and win a World Cup, you know, and like there's still some question marks behind Sergio Dest and his defensive ability. And specifically, if I really start thinking situationally, I don't want to get too deep. I'm like, all right, if we're trying to win a World Cup, my 11 needs to go play against Germany. It needs to go play against France. And he's, you know, like, and I'm taking Bees in that kind of game over Dest. I just am.
100%. 100%. By the way, in the chat room, Anthony, his going back to the old reliable Jada Merritt was a club legend.
Big Jada Merritt guy, Anthony. I respect that. I like Jada Merritt.
I do too. My starter at right back was Marcelo Balboa.
Wait, did Messi score? Sorry, did Messi score? I hate to interrupt.
I believe so.
God. What a joke Lionel Messi is. All right, anyway, let's keep going. That's just a joke.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like, because Anthony's keeping me abreast there in the chat room. Messi with the 8 eyes. I had Marcelo Balboa at right back. And, you know, that's the thing. It's like Marcelo Balboa did, you know, he played along the back four. Marcelo Balboa, man, phenomenal. He was named USMNT Player of the 90s. I think he played in 3 World Cups, 1990, 94, 98. He had 127 caps. Here's the crazy thing, man. Marcelo Balboa had 13 goals from a defensive position. Technically, I think his official position was sweeper. But, you know, you were saying that, like, if we're building a team to go win a World Cup, Marcelo Balboa has got to be on my back four. You know what I mean? Like, that dude was so unbelievably gifted. Played I think he played in 2 Confederations Cups. No, excuse me, 2 Copa Americas. Was a part of that great 1995 Copa America squad. When you're talking about athleticism, you're talking about defensive prowess. That dude was an unbelievable 1v1 defender. And you think about it, and you think about today's defenders, right? That basically from like 5'11" to 6'3" on the back four if you're not a center back. This dude was pint size and was not afraid to make a challenge in the box, in his own box. This dude, Marcelo Balboa, was fearless. And you absolutely need one of those dudes on your back four if you're competing against some of the best teams in the world. Like, you have to have that dude that's not afraid of Ronaldo, not afraid of Messi, not afraid of Jack Grealish or Erling Haaland or any of those type of guys. You know what I mean? Like, that's, to me, is Marcelo Balboa. He is like next to Clint Dempsey as far as like American arrogance and cockiness. That dude had it in spades. You know what I mean? That's the type of dude. Like, I want him to tackle you 1v1 and then talk shit to you after you get up. Like, that's why I love Marcelo Balboa.
And I love putting him in right back. I didn't even like really think about that. Yeah. Because my memory of him, once again, kind of early, right? 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade was center back. I think that's where he played in 94. But I love the idea, once again, just like, you got to put some guys, like Beasley never played right back. Like, put your best guys that you think can actually help you win a game together. He was a dude, man. Like, he's another guy that, like, you know, 97, 98 kind of is my memory of Balboa, real memory of kind of getting in and watching a lot. And he was a little older at that point, but he was good.
Right. Andrew Barr in the chat room says no love for Tony Sena. Actually, no. I have a lot of love for Tony Sena. And if you remember that 2002 World Cup, he was probably the best defender in that group stage. That dude was fearless. I love Tony Sena. And I'm thanking Andrew Barr for bringing it up because, again, he's another guy that gets a little overlooked. But, Tony Sena was awesome.
I love that one. Yeah, it's a great shout.
All right, center, defensive, mid, the sixth position. This is going to be excellent, man. Who do you got? Honorable mentions. Let's do that.
Yeah, so I'm thinking specifically the 6. I didn't really organize it at the 6. I've got I'll split these up. If you're going to do kind of 6 and 8, I'll just give you half of my center mids now and half after. They're not going to necessarily be backup 6s, but they are going to be backup central mids. So Tyler Adams is a backup for me. I think he's done enough to kind of earn that honorable 100%. Mention, kind 100%. Of in the mix for the backup, right? I mean, he had a really good World Cup. He's been really good for us for about 5 years now. So he's in the mix there. I'll go, and I'll give you.
I got a name for you, man. I'm
going to go Paul Caligari, which he scored maybe the most famous all-time USMNT goal. A lot of people don't even know about it, but it was
it's the $1 billion goal against Trinidad.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it really, his goal, for those of you who don't know, go Google it. It's Paul Caligari. Yeah, Caligiuri. And just watch the goal. He scored an absolute banger to send us to the World Cup. It was against Trinidad and Tobago, 1990, or I don't know, it might have been 89.
89. It was 89.
But to send us to the 90 World Cup, which is our first World Cup in forever. And
it's kind of
really, when you think about it, sparked everything, right? He doesn't score that goal. It's just delayed, right? I think obviously we have the 94 World Cup, but everything's just delayed, and it really set us off. And he was really good. He was a good, more defensive minded midfielder, and just a really good shout that a lot of people don't think about. So I wanted to throw some love out there.
By the way, so when you think about the context of that one goal, Mexico hosted the 86 World Cup, and we were expected to qualify in 86, and we don't. We lose to Costa Rica. Canada qualifies. And if you remember back in those days, CONCACAF only had one automatic qualifier for the World Cup because the field was only 24 teams. And this was expected to be the U.S. because, they're hosting. So you get the automatic qualifier. We didn't. Mexico's not a part of the 90 World Cup because of sanctions. They fielded overage players in an underage World Cup. And so it was the U.S.'s to lose. And in 88, we get the 94 World Cup. And so there was a lot of pressure on that young team. And there was a lot of belief that if they didn't qualify for 90, FIFA might take away the 94 World Cup. And if that happened, we probably don't have Major League Soccer. So that goal was... You're absolutely, not only did it kick it off, but it also ushered into the new, what I call the modern age of the U.S. men's national team. And it happened by a guy that does get overlooked a little bit. Quick shout out real quick to Stu Holden. I gotta mention Stu Holden.
So talent, almost he's one of the biggest what ifs for me, in all honesty, right?
Perfect.
He's another guy we just know as a talking head now, but he was a guy. He was a real guy.
Awesome. Tyler Adams, 100%. I agree with you. And of course, Johnny O'Brien's got to get mentioned as well too. For me though, at the defensive mid position, here's a guy that I absolutely loved, and I actually thought he was absolutely unbelievable for the small time that we had him. Jermaine Jones, man. Jermaine Jones, to me was, you talk about two-way defensive mids. Not only was he awesome defensively, but when you needed linking passes throughout through the midfield, Jermaine Jones was he was automatic. Jermaine Jones' ability to transition on the counterattack. A lot of people forget how talented Jermaine Jones was.
I will hold my Jermaine Jones thoughts because he's coming up for me.
Fair enough. All right, so starters at the defensive mid position, mine was Michael Bradley, and I know that what's his bucket? Jurgen Klinsmann liked to float him at the 10 position, but for me, he was a natural 9. And when you look at his club career, the consistency, but his ability, man, his ability to literally make a 30-yard pass or a switch on a dime,
unbelievable.
But also his scoring ability as well too. That dude. I can count off the top of my head how many absolute dime goals, golazos, whatever you want to call them, that were outside the 18-yard box. Michael Bradley was legit, 100% legit. And I remember back in the day, a lot of people were giving him shit because he was the coach's kid. But I'm telling you, man, Michael Bradley to me was probably the best defensive mid we had.
Yeah, Bradley's it for me too, man. I don't have a ton else to add. I mean, I think one thing I will say is that I think a lot of people remember old Bradley, Like a certain era of people remember old Bradley on the 2018 World Cup or qualification cycle. And, and he wasn't great at that point in time. And he was being played in, I don't think, optimal position for himself at times. And big goal against Mexico. That goal against Mexico was sick in that, I thought at that moment in time, we were going to qualify for sure. And, but to your point, like the prime of him was Confederation Cup 2010 through 2014. He's playing for Roma in Serie A. He's a really good player at that. He's not a star, but he's a really good midfielder at that level. And all those guys just got bags thrown at them from the MLS. And I don't even hate them for coming back, man. Like,
nope.
They were literally offered like 5x their salary to come back and play. It's like a no-brainer. You have to do it. Him, Josie, Clint, like all those guys just got bags thrown at them. And it's like, and it did stall his career a little bit. Like I thought he was on a different trajectory if he stays in Serie A and stays in Europe. I do unfortunately think coming back a whole level of competition at that point, hurt him, but you can't take away that 5-6 year run where he was phenomenal.
I know. And I know that Klinsmann gave him shit for coming back to Major League Soccer, but you're not going to turn down the bag. It was funny. I remember when Klinsmann was playing him as the 10 in that 4-4-2 diamond that he liked to play. And I was like, I understand why he did it, but it was kind of a waste of a few years, especially taking him away from his strongest position. But yeah, for me, Michael Bradley was excellent. All right. The center mid position, not the attacking mid, but the center mid position. I guess you would call it the 8. Who do you have? We can go starters, or we can go.
I'll do honorable mentions quick. Weston McKennie. Don't need to say much. He's, you've made some good points before we came on. Like he can play now, advanced in the midfield.
Yeah.
I still think box to box is a really good spot for him.
I have McKennie. I have McKennie a little bit later on, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So he's honorable mention there for me. Once again, similar to Adams, he's earned it, I think, at this point in time. And then Ernie Stewart's actually a guy that I would throw in there as well. Once again, it's kind of weird. You can flex these midfield guys in different ways, but just put him in my backup central midfield, honorable mention, central midfield box. Really good player, right? Another guy that is probably better known for being the GM of the USMNT now and like all this kind of more modern stuff, but was an awesome player in his day.
So here's the weird part. Like I have Ernie Stewart as a honorable mention. I also had Todd Ramos as an honorable mention. A lot of people forget how special Tab Ramos was. World Cup 90, World Cup 94. I think he was also part of the 98 World Cup. And that dude was Mr. Reliable throughout the 90s. Starting for me was Claudio Reyna. And I know that people only remember Claudio Reyna for what just happened a couple of years back in the I guess you can call it the controversy with Greg Berhalter. But for me, he was really like the first player who was, I guess you can say it was the first person who was really developed as what we would consider the modern day 10. Like his technical ability was off the charts, right? And that's kind of, to me, like how he was developed in the mold of a 10, as what we see now across the globe. My only issue with Claudio was the fact that he was injured a lot. Like his injuries are what cut down his career. But when you look at his technical ability, dude, that's like, if you're talking about like the best players of the 90s, of that era, we can talk about the prolific goal scorers, Eric Winalda, Ernie Stewart, guys like that. But the rock, the glue of those teams in the 90s was Claudio Reyna.
Yeah, I'll talk about him a little bit later on. I've got him too, so I had more in where I've got him. But my starter is Jermaine Jones. So once again, I'm building a team here. Yeah. I've got Michael Bradley here, right? And Bradley is a good defender, but not like an elite defender. Really good kind of metronome back there. You mentioned his, especially long diagonal passes, but he was a really good passer and connector in that spot. And I love putting somebody like Jones next to him, which is what we saw in the 2014 World Cup. They were really good 100%. Together. And
100%.
Jones also gives you a little bit of like the defensive grit. But then you saw, everybody knows the goal he scored in the 2014 World Cup, an all-time USMNT banger in a big moment, could kind of create a goal out of nowhere and was like a legit high-level Bundesliga player at that point, right? And so
100%.
I just love, like, once again, if I'm building this team, I'm thinking about how do we compete, in a knockout stage game against a big nation. And if I've got Pope and Gooch and I've got those two in front of them, right? And I've got Jedi and I've got Bees. Like, I love that kind of back six formation that I've got. I feel like I can't do a ton better if I'm, preparing to play a knockout game. So, and I would take it right now, in all honesty. If I could trade our back line for that, I would.
Imagine having a double pivot of Michael Bradley and Claudio Reyna, but then you also have Jermaine Jones coming off the bench. Like, if you need it, oh my God. Unbelievable. All right, center attackers. The cam position.
Yeah. Why don't you go first? You give your honorable mention first here. Yeah.
This is where Weston McKennie comes in, and I know that under Greg Berhalter, he was more of a box to box. But when you watch him play at the club level, and the way that Juventus takes risks by playing him up in the box, he is an unbelievable performer. It's weird because he's almost that high roaming 10, hybrid false 9. And he just excels. He's always in the right place at the right time. There was a reason why he led the Serie A in assists. And I think from a 10 position, you're going to get the absolute best from Weston McKennie. And again, we were talking about it at the top of the show. I really hope Mauricio Pochettino is going to take a risk and put him up there, because I actually think that connection to the into the attacking third, it's going to open everything. It's going to open everything up for the U.S. men's national team, and I have him as an honorable mention at 10.
I love it. I put Kobe Jones here. All-time leading caps guy.
Yep.
He has 164 caps with the
Love
USMNT.
Kobe Jones.
And Kobe's a guy, like, he also, another guy, I feel like this whole era of guys, him, Alexi, Eddie Pope, there's a number, Winalda, like a number of these guys, like, were tremendous, and they all went and played MLS to start the league. And you have to think about what the dynamic was. We were starting a professional league. We needed the best American players to start that league. If you don't have the best American players all come back to play in it, it just doesn't work. It can't possibly work. So, like, a guy like Kobe, he was playing in Brazil. He was playing in England. Like, he was going to have a really fruitful European career. He was going to be a 10-plus year pro in Europe, right? And he came back and was an absolute star in the MLS. But I feel like sometimes those guys get shortchanged. I just want to give shouts to them because they started our league, right? Like, this all doesn't happen without them. Like, MLS starting and thriving, right, growing to thrive, is why guys like Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie can just go to Europe, and we can still have a good domestic league now, right? It all stems back to the Caligari goal. It all stems, like, there's a bunch of these seminal moments that I just wanted to make sure we highlight in a pod like this. I think it's really important.
But by the way, guys like John Harkes, guys like Tab Ramos, guys like Kobe Jones never get shortchanged in my book, because you're absolutely right. Like, I don't think we are the national team today without those dudes that trailblazed in the 90s.
100%.
Right?
No
100%.
No doubt.
And, that's the thing. It's like, if you go back and watch any of those matches from the 94 World Cup, there's like 3 guys that consistently stand out in all of those games. One of them was Tab Ramos. The other guy was Kobe Jones. Kobe Jones was there was like a 3-year period from like 94 to like 97 where he was at the absolute top of his game. And, that translated at the Major League Soccer level as well, too. That dude was just unbelievably talented.
Hey, just one more quick shout out. Johnny O, John O'Brien, who's
Johnny O.
He's just a good shout at backup central midfield somewhere. Once again, exactly where you put him in the box, I don't know, but like, awesome player. For those who don't know, went to Ajax when he was 17. Scored in that Portugal win, had a big assist in South Korea, like an absolute star in that 02 World Cup for us. Can't really be understated how phenomenal he was. Johnny
O.
Feels like a shorter, I don't have the number there, but it feels like a shorter career. I don't feel like I saw him for quite as long as some other guys, but deserves a mention as well here. He was really good.
Quick, here, let me pull it up real quick. John O'Brien, yeah, he was awesome. Let's see.
Yeah, he's another guy like just I don't know, like names.
Yeah, he had
but
32 caps. You're absolutely right.
I know, just and that's how I didn't even have that in my head, but I was like, I couldn't think about 98 or 06. I was like, was he even there? I don't really remember, but I do remember in that 02 World Cup, which is a seminal moment for me in my USMNT watching, and that he was so good in that World Cup. He
was unbelievable. My starter for the central attacking mid is the OG, man. He was the original Captain America, and it's Landon Donovan. And I have Landon Donovan in this position. He started his career up top as a 9, but towards the middle of his career, he played a little bit back for the national team as a 10. His ability to score, obviously, he is 57 career international goals. Landon Donovan, I have him in this position for a reason, because we're going to find out who our strikers are coming up. But when you think about his ability, his vision on the pitch, like, I'll give you a good example, man. His first cap in Los Angeles against Mexico in a friendly. Chris Henderson goes down early. Bruce Arena turns to him, puts him in the game. He gets an absolute dime of a goal. And then on the assists, right, he's being tracked by 2 Mexican defenders, and I think he sees Josh Wolf just off the peripheral making a run, and he puts an absolute dime through and hits Josh Wolf on his foot for the goal. So in his debut, he gets a goal and assist. He's also the all-time international leader for assists as well too. The only guy that's even close is Neymar. So you look at his goal production. He is easily far and away, as far as goal production goes, the best player ever that we've developed. And I have him at the 10 position.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting, right? How you format this kind of like front 4, let's call it, with an attacking mid and 3 attackers is really interesting and difficult, because there was like set names that I wanted to fit in, and it's like, how do I get those guys together? But then how do I not just build a fantasy lineup and make sure that I have enough defensive? Because I see what you did with Reyna, right? As soon as you said Reyna there, I was like, I know what he did. Because I thought about it as well, right? And I kind of went the other way, where I was like, I probably need to build a team that's a little bit more defensive, but I get what you did, because I almost did it. I have Reyna at the 10. And I'll just say a couple other things about Reyna, about Claudio Reyna, because he was really, really good. Like, he was our best player at our best World Cup, right? And that's like what anybody who wasn't alive or wasn't really conscious for that 02 World Cup. He was the best player at our best World Cup. He was without a doubt the best player on the field for us. He was in, I think, the World Cup 11, right? Kind of like they call the All-Star World Cup All-Stars or whatever. Like,
it was the team of the tournament. It was the team
right. It's like the all-tournament team, right? That's what he was named to, right? And he was just like, so. Once again, I'm going peak over longevity, because that's really all that matters. And I'm taking peak 02 Reyna, who to me is the most creative and probably the most technical player that we've ever seen with the USMNT.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing, right? Yeah, because I'm building my team for the pragmatic style of what world football is being played today, which is high tempo, high attacking. But here's a quick story about Claudio Reyna. So the interesting thing about it was going into that first match against Portugal at the 02 World Cup. He was lined up centrally, but here's the crazy thing. For that match against Mexico in the round of 16, Bruce Arena did an absolute beautiful thing and put him out wide right.
Yep.
And totally essentially just fucked up what Mexico was trying to do with us, because they took one look at it and was like, what the hell are they doing? And what ended up happening was absolutely beautiful, because of that formation, and just the way that his ability, what Bruce Arena just decided to do, and it was just, words can't describe how beautiful that game plan was against Mexico. But you're absolutely right, and that's the crazy thing, as I mentioned earlier about Claudio, was that he was actually developed of what we would consider a modern day 10, right? And this was back in the 90s, right? Like, you're absolutely right. He easily was probably the most technically gifted player we've ever developed.
4 World Cups,
Yep.
2 Olympics, right? Like one of the most just purely decorated players in terms of being a 4 World Cup guy is, I mean, is he the only one? Like, I don't, not even had a chance.
Casey was on 4 World Cup rosters. Now he didn't play in all.
Okay, goalkeeper. Yeah. Field player was Beasley on 4?
3.
Just 3? 02, 06. He wasn't on 14?
Maybe
10, 14? I know. Yeah, I can never remember.
Yeah, I think Beasley was a 4 World Cup guy. Now that I think about it,
yeah. But the point is, not many, right? This is not like a thing that happens all that often. And Reyna is like one of the few, and very deservedly so. And like to your point, you said it before, and I can't reiterate it enough. Like the whole first half of his career was pretty much injury riddled, and that was like, you know, he's a big what if. Like he was a guy that if he doesn't get hurt, and you got to remember injuries back in those days, Steve, like they hurt you more than they hurt you now. Like they just did. Like a torn ACL in basketball, you were done. Your career was over. You know, or
Correct.
Football, it was over. Like, and so all those injuries that Reyna had set him back in that era way more than they would right now, right? We're just better at helping players recover from that sort of stuff. And he was way less dynamic, way less explosive. And even the guy we saw in 02 who was really good, that was like, it's scary to say, but to me, that's like a shell of what Claudio Reyna could have been without the injuries. He's an all-time what if, and I pray his son does not become an all-time what if as well. But it's like, it's funny. The career mirror is scary, Steve. Like it is.
Andrew Barr in the chat room is saying Reyna on the wing really worked against Mexico because Sana was behind him cleaning.
That's your guy. I love it.
100%. I love that. Thank you, Andrew. Left wing. Honorable mentions.
I don't know. You can go. Like I honestly like wing. I was shocked at how shallow winger was. Like John Harkes is a name, right? He's a little like we didn't really play with pure wingers back then, but like he was like an outside mid who did attack, right? And like the most famous thing about Harkes at this point is that he slept with Wijnaldum's wife right before the World Cup, right before the 98 World Cup.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
And got thrown off the team. Like that's literally what I know him for, but he was a phenomenal player. But like that overrules everything. And a lot of people, I listened to a whole pod on the 98 World Cup team. There's like an awesome pod out there. A random podcast did like a 3-part series on it. It's really cool. And it was like a whole episode on the Harkes Wijnaldum drama. And their claim was like, it just threw off the whole World Cup. That team coming in was like phenomenal. The 95 Confederations Cup was like, where did they finish in that? They were runner up or third. Like they were.
The 95 Confederate, they went to the semifinals. So yeah, they ended up losing to Argentina.
They were like beating like Argentina. Yeah. So like, and that was all those guys, right? And they had like, they beat a lot of teams from 94 to 98. They like gained a lot of confidence, beat a lot of big teams worldwide in competitions. And then like shit the bed. It cannot be like stressed enough how badly they shit the bed. And a lot of people blame the coaching and they think the style they were playing was like ridiculous. But this whole episode was like that drama, right? Of like not only one having the drama of a teammate sleeping with another teammate's wife, which is just like chemistry ruining. You also had to get rid of one of your best players. Like you had to, like just for the team to survive. And then it was like a kind of, I think there was like almost like a woe is me or like, oh my God, this sucks.
But he was a good player. What's crazy is it's unfortunate that that's what he's remembered by, right? He's not nobody like when you ever mention the name John Harkes in U.S. men's national team circles, that is the first and only thing that comes up. But you know, to your point, 98, there was 2 things. Number one, their head coach Steve Sampson was a very weak coach and did not, he was considered a very weak coach that did not know how to handle those things. Correct. But here's the crazy thing about that Wijnaldum Harkes thing was that it drew lines down the team. There were actually teammates that sided with John Harkes and a lot of guys that sided with Eric Wijnaldum. So they had no choice but to kick somebody off the team. But 100%, like that is absolutely backbreaking to a team. That's an absolute killer. Can you imagine being a part of a team and you're going into the locker room looking at a dude that that just fucked your wife? Dude,
can you imagine with social media right now if that happened right now?
Oh my God.
If like McKennie slept with Pulisic's wife. Like, that's for anybody who doesn't understand, like the Harks Winalda dynamic, or sorry, Harks, was it?
They were best friends,
Winalda, right? They were like best friends growing up their whole lives. Like I think they went to high school together, maybe. Like they literally they played soccer their whole lives together. And Hark sleeps with Winalda's wife right before the World Cup, in the year before the World Cup, something like that. And like they were maybe not our two best, but like two of our best 5 players, right? It would literally like McKennie sleeping with Pulisic's wife.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how Twitter would blow up, Steve? Like
Ronaldo was like our like pure like that. He was our goal scorer during those years.
No, it's Wes. Yeah. It's Wes sleeping with Pulisic's wife and Wes not being able to go to the World Cup. Like
that's exactly, dude. That can you especially with the age of social media? Oh my God.
But hey, I just want to say, first American to play in the Prem, first American to score in the Prem, like legit soccer player. Just for anybody out there is like, who's this Harks guy you're talking about? Like Premier League player. You know how hard it was to make it as an American in the Prem in the 90s? It's like impossible. It's like, especially as not a goalie or defender. Like it was almost impossible. And so just to give you a little context of how good the guy was.
Yeah. All right. So my starting left wing is Christian Pulisic. And it goes without saying. He's right now, Christian Pulisic. He's got what? I think he's got 74 total caps, 31 goals. And by the time this thing ends, he will break the duopoly at the top of the scoring table between Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan. Right now, he is our best player, and he has been our best player for 6 years.
He's the best USMNT player ever. He doesn't have the best USMNT career, but he is the best player who has ever put on a USMNT shirt. Right?
I'm gonna not to me, but he at the end of it, at the end of his career, like I think
you would take another player over right now, Christian Pulisic. If you were having one game to play, or one season, 100%. Right? Like you have one season, you can start a team. You're taking another guy over him. That's crazy. I think that's crazy.
Well, we're not a season, but for a
a season. Yeah, sure. Like when I say that, what I mean is if I'm a club team, right, taking any USMNT player ever, if you're like, hey, you can take any USMNT player from any year and you could have them for your whole season, right? To me, that's like who the best player is, right? Not necessarily who would be the best over 5 games or one game. It's like who can actually perform in a high level league. And to me, it's like I think right now Pulisic's the best I've ever seen for sure. But I'm interested to hear what your argument is. It's a good argument.
So
is it a guy coming up that you haven't mentioned?
Yes.
All right, let's save it.
Yes.
Save it. When you get to him, let's have the argument. My left winger.
It's gotta be Pula.
My left winger is Landon Donovan. I'm putting Donovan on the left side. We can invert him a little bit. You're right. He can do stuff middle of the field. He can get out wide and take guys on. You said it all about Donovan. I don't need to say much more, but I've got Claudio here. I've got Donovan on my left side. So let's keep building, man. This is fun. This is where it gets good.
Right wing.
I have no honorable mentions. Harks is my only winger honorable mention. I can't wait to hear who else you have.
Sounds good. My right wing starter is Brian McBride. And so here's the thing. Brian McBride.
We're building.
And this dude was nasty. Not only did this dude have pace, but this dude was fearless. 1v1 challenges, it didn't matter who he was playing. Brian McBride, like all you need to do is go to I think it was a World Cup qualifier in 2001. He goes up 1v1 against Rafa Marquez. Do you remember this? He goes 1v1 up for the ball with Rafa Marquez, and he headbutts him, and his eye swells. Like his eye was swollen. He goes 1v1. Marquez headbutts him, and he comes down, and this dude is begging to stay in the game. Like this dude was a savage, right? So when you're talking about technical ability, you're going to need to have a guy who's going to be not number one, just fearless, but also I think he was actually the best aerial attacking threat we've ever developed. As far as pure skill goes, Brian McBride for me is going to be on the right, and I think that complements Christian on the left and also Landon in the middle.
So Yeah, we're gonna get controversial here.
Okay.
I'll say this about McBride. I can't wait to tell you how I've planned out these last 2 spots. I honestly I shuffled the front four like 10 times. I couldn't figure it out because it's let's just be frank with it, right? Like there is we go into these last 2 spots, if you count the attacking mid, right? You've got 5 to me clear-cut dudes, right? And I think you put Reyna down, so I think you're going to be able to squeeze them all in potentially. But for me, it's like there's 5 dudes: Reyna, Pulisic, Donovan, Dempsey, McBride, right? Those are, to me, those are like the 5 best attacking players that we have. That to me, if I were building a team, I'm like, how can I get them all in, right? Now, you guys all know I put Jermaine Jones and Bradley in my double pivot, so I have to leave one out. So I'm excited for you to learn who I left out because I had to leave one out.
So here's the crazy thing, right? With my attacking 4, because if you want to push Donovan forward into that false 9 role, you can have Pulisic invert to the 10, or you can play Reyna up. You know what I mean? From that double pivot, you can move him a little bit up the field. And you're not going to, like that's the thing is you have Bradley back. So if you're trying to play through the midfield, you still have probably our best passing midfielder, our best technical 10 who's playing a box to box. So there's many ways that you can attack with this formation. You know what I mean? Like that's why I love it.
You're ready to go in the attack. I'm really worried about your team defensively. I'm getting like the shakes, but like I love it. Like you are ready to play modern soccer. Like it's a really good team. Like it's a good.
By the way, modern soccer with the best players we've ever produced. And by the way, and maybe I'm just a little jaded because I watch Ange Postecoglou ball all the time, right? So I love the idea of playing a high line. Right. And not only that, but my 2 center backs are the 2 fastest center backs we've ever produced in Bocanegra and Pope. But then also I have 2 very good wing backs that can play forward and track back. You know what I mean?
And to be fair, you already said like you're keeping Balboa at home, right? He's a guy who isn't going to push forward that much. And on your left, you had
DeMarcus Beasley,
right? Yeah, who also like you could kind of keep Bees at home a little more. So like to be fair, you could just keep more of your defenders at home, and like if you have one of your mids playing up, you can do things to cover for that is my point. But all right, right wing, my right wing, right? That's what we're on. Yeah. I'm going to put Christian Pulisic. I mean, listen, he's playing at his best on the right for his club. He's playing in the middle actually a lot too, but over the last 2 years, he's played really well and he's been on the right a lot. And he's really good. He can play either way, either side. No problem. You putting him on the left. I think Donovan's a little bit better on the left-hand side from my memory. So I put Pulley on the right, who I think is ultra capable there. But you said it all with Pulisic, and I think I already said it all, which I think he's the best pure soccer player that I've ever seen who's put on our jersey. But let's get to your guy, who I think is coming up. Honorable mention, right, for the 9.
Just a second. Hey, by the way, Wes, don't sleep with Pooley's girlfriend. That's my first piece of advice.
Freddie Abdul.
Billy Carter Valente says Freddie Abdul. Freddie will not be mentioned today, and he's not even coming off my bench, by the way.
Freddie Abdul-Rahman, Freddie Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, that's exactly Freddie Abdul-Jabbar. All right, so 9 honorable mention. Honorable mention is Eric Winalda. And I don't think you can even do this without mentioning Eric. He was our all-time leading goal scorer there throughout the late 80s, early 90s. And for those who don't remember, the best memory that I have of Eric Winalda came in Gold Cup 91. And I think he scored the winner against Mexico in the final, scored against Mexico in the semis. And we beat Honduras in a shootout in the final, and that's what really put USMNT on the map. We poached Bora Milutinovic from Mexico, and that really kind of set the stage for World Cup 94. Eric Winalda was amazing in World Cup 94. I still remember the free kick against Switzerland at the Pontiac Silverdome. Eric Winalda was the real deal of the 90s, man. He's got to be the honorable mention.
Yeah, Winalda's on my list for honorable mention. I'm going to leave my other one because I've got McBride and I've got Dempsey still remaining. And I might even be flipping it in my head right now. I've got 2 guys. One of them is going to be my striker. I'm just going to do a little, we're going to do a little mystery here. So Yeah, I'm gonna throw Josie's name out there, and I say this because at his absolute best, Josie Altidore, there's an argument that you might start Josie Altidore at the 9, and I say it not because he's like better than McBride or better than Winalda. I say it because he's different, right? Like Josie as a presence at his height was just different. You could play direct to him in a way that I'm not sure you could really do with a ton of other strikers we've ever had. He was an aerial presence. He was super dynamic scoring. It's a guy who scored over 30 goals in the Eredivisie. And I think the way the end of his career, even like 2014, he got hurt in that World Cup. Like a lot of things didn't go his way, but like
I think he also got hurt in the 2010 Cup as well.
I think you're right as well. Yeah. So just like never went his way in the big moments. But he was phenomenal in the Federation Cup, right? He was big time for us in that. And he's a guy that, like, especially situationally, if you're looking for a certain kind of striker, which this team that we're putting together might need a Josie Altidore in some of these games, right? A guy that you can just play direct to and can hold up play and go win balls and give you kind of a chance to play more direct. I think there's an interesting argument. He was really good. And then I wanted to throw a deep cut out there for you. This is a name. I did a paper in high school on it's like this English class I did, and we had this whole like sports like literature like thing, right? So I did this article on the 1930 World Cup team who finished 3rd in the World Cup, which is like crazy.
1930 or 50?
30, I'm almost positive, but you can look it up. But I'm almost positive 1930.
Are you talking about Joe Gaetjens?
Nope.
Okay, because Joe Gaetjens should be mentioned. He was the guy that scored the lone goal in the 1950 World Cup when we pulled off the greatest upset ever in a World Cup. He scored that lone goal against England. And Joe Gaetjens, by the way, was he was actually a Haitian national, but he was playing for US because back in those days you can literally play anybody. You didn't need to have a passport. So so
1930 World Cup, we finished 3rd at the World Cup. At the World Cup of Soccer, we finished 3rd.
And I think that 1930 World Cup only had like 8 teams in it.
Right,
it was like
sure. Not many at all. But once again, like that was a time where we finished 3rd in the world. Crazy. Cup. And I remember when I got into soccer, right, which was like late middle school, high school, like hardcore, was starting to search, like, where can I watch games? Answer, you couldn't unless it was MLS. Like you could not watch games here, or unless you got like one of those big satellite dishes. You know, honestly, people don't even probably remember this. People like psychos had massive satellite dishes outside of their house, so that they could get stuff like European TV and stuff like that. So anyway, the guy's name is Billy Gonzalez. Was the best player in our 1930 World Cup team, was a striker, and was kind of like this all-time kind of soccer legend in the U.S. From, you said modern period, I'm going to ancient period, right? Like 1930.
This is Honus Wagner in the dead ball era.
This is Ty Cobb. Like, this is no doubt like black and white pictures. You cannot find film of this team. Never watched a single minute. But we're pre-Great Depression soccer. Yeah, you see the cat's pajamas. Billy Gonzalez. Billy Gonzalez scored 3 goals.
The only people that play soccer in the United States are immigrants. See,
people go to the movie theater to watch like the newsreel. Like,
that's exactly right.
In the USA finished 3rd in the recent World Cup. Let's see some highlights, and it's like one grainy picture. Yeah. Anyway, but I wanted to throw out some ancient history there, and
by the way, that's awesome. I'm glad. Yeah, and I think it's important to highlight the fact that the United States has been playing soccer for a very long time. Maybe not as far as like top flight soccer as far as leagues, but the U.S. men's national team has been around for quite some time, and they actually had some pretty good upsets back in the day. But all right, man. So we're getting into the starting. And by the way, before I do that, I do want to highlight real quick something about Josie Altidore. He was what I consider our first true hold-up 9. You know what I mean? Like his hold-up play was something that the U.S. didn't necessarily have prior to Josie Altidore. The reason why he didn't make my starting 9 was because that dude just always seemed to get hurt in the biggest moments.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And it's like, when we're talking about going into a World Cup and we're talking about playing England, France, Italy, Germany, Netherlands, Brazil, Argentina, I just want a dude who is going to put the ball in the back of the net, and I don't have to worry about him getting hurt. Which is why my starting 9 is the guy that I would take over Christian Pulisic. because he had one of the best years of an American in the English Premier League.
Homer. Sorry.
Yeah,
Homer.
and by the way,
Seattle fan.
Yeah, by the way, fuck you too, pal. Clint Dempsey, 100% without a doubt. When I think of what an American athlete embodies, cockiness, arrogance, the ability to look at an opposite team and say, I don't give a shit who you're throwing out there, I'm going to score on you. I don't care.
I love the story of him. I think it was maybe in the Prem or something. He's like, he got in like a little scuffle. He's like, you don't know where I'm from. You don't know where the fuck I'm from. And they were like, no, we don't know where you're from. Where are you from?
Yeah. And what's funny is like, and he has the balls to rep Nacogdoches, Texas, some town that's nobody's ever heard of. But Clint Dempsey, 57 goals. And the crazy thing about it, if it wasn't for 2 heart procedures late in his career, he probably would have added to that. I hate the way that it ended in Trinidad because he never got his farewell. He never got his send-off. And it's a shame, too, because Clint Dempsey was probably one of our best players for like an 8-year stretch with the national team. Plus, he also made a pretty cool rap video as well, too. I think you got to give props to the white rappers. But Fulham, and this was in the 2011-2012 season. He had 37 starts out of 37, 17 goals, 6 assists, 23 total goal contributions in the Prem for an American. You know what I mean?
Not for a top team, and not for a team
that's exactly right.
Not for a team that's like producing chances out of their ass every 2 seconds, for sure.
Correct. And he also had some very good Europa League moments too. I think they beat Juve in that year as well too. To me, it's like when I think about attacking third. Now, here's the thing: he's not a true 9. Clint was never a true 9. He was a false 9 to the total sense. And we saw that a little bit in the 2014 World Cup as well too. Like when you think about Josie Altidore going out early, right? And they had to play Clint up top, and that kind of hurt them a little bit in that attacking sense. But he was still able to produce. So even in those situations where he's somewhat playing out of position, he was still phenomenal. So I'm gonna, dude, it's like you can't not have Clint Dempsey in your starting 9. Period.
Yeah. So the argument against it, because I thought about it a lot, and I thought about actually putting Dempsey at a winger spot. Like Dempsey's the kind of guy you could throw him in a lot of different places and kind of make it work.
57 career international goals.
He'll kind of make it work, like, right? Like you could put him, to me, you could put him anywhere. Like you could put him at the 10 and you could just play him as a second striker, kind of underneath. Like he'll make it work. Like he's such a good soccer player and so versatile as an attacker. I literally think he's the one guy that I have full confidence. If I put him in any of the 4 spots, I wouldn't feel bad about it. I'd be like, he'll figure it out. Like he's just good. And so the argument against it is like, okay, I might now need an aerial threat. I now might need a more traditional 9 like McBride to go do that stuff. But at the end of the day, like there's just no chance that like I'm not going to start like a dog like Clint. He's just a dog. He's an absolute dog. Like
that's exactly right.
Like the goal he scored to open the 2014 World Cup was like an absolute statement, right? A statement to us, his teammates, a statement to the group. Right, that was a group of death, right? Germany, Portugal, us, Ghana, I believe, right? Those 4, right? And it's like, well, how's the U.S. going to do? And Dempsey, if you don't know the goal I'm talking about, go Google Clint Dempsey 2014 World Cup goal. Like, just like an absolute death. It was something, honestly, that you're like, oh, I didn't expect an American to do that. Like, I didn't expect an American. Ball's kind of like passed behind him. I haven't watched it, honestly, in like a year. He drags it forward, like kind of like plays through 2 guys and just like it's honestly a worldie. It really is. Like the way he scores it is so good. And like I said, it was really like it's like 4 minutes in, guys. Like 4 minutes into the World Cup. And like Clint Dempsey, maybe 10, I don't know. But he like pulls it out of nowhere. And it's like, oh, we're here. Like we've arrived. Like we got that fucking dude. Like we got, and it really made me believe. And it made everyone believe. And that's why he has to start. Because it's like, he can pull magic out of nowhere, and he brings a lot of what our current team is missing, which is like a level of toughness when like the scraps start.
Like he's a guy who's going to go get in it, and he's not going to be Timmy Way and get a red card. He's going to go put his nose in it and be like, "Shut the fuck up! You know where I'm from?" Like we don't have. We're missing that. We're missing that right now, honestly. And like on those teams, that was not what Landon Donovan was. Landon Donovan was a lot like kind of soft and like very good player, but like not a guy who's going to go get into it, right? And a guy who's going to like step up against tough, hard-nosed dudes. And I think you made a great point, which is like he could play against anyone. Like you're not scared of him going up against anyone. And you know what? At the end of the day, we have McBride. If it's really a real deal, I've got McBride coming off the bench as, you know, maybe the best pure goal scorer we've ever had. And, you know, now you can bring him off the bench with 30 minutes left if you need a goal.
Right.
I love these guys, man. I love these 11s. These 11s are awesome.
By the way, Clint Dempsey is the only U.S. men's national team to score in 3 straight World Cups. 2006, ridiculous. 2010, 2014. He was that dude. But, you know, I guess you can say that's my biggest problem with the U.S. men's national team today is they don't have that one dude who is fearless and who's not afraid of playing, right? And it didn't matter either. It's like, even though that Clint's attitude towards January camps and friendlies, you know, weren't the same as competition, but he still played every game at a high level. Like he still showed up even in friendlies and things like that. And so that's to me, like Clint Dempsey to me. And if you ask me, like you asked me earlier, like if there was to take one guy in his prime for a full season, you're like, it had to be Pulisic. It's like,
yeah, I mean,
I'd take Deuce.
Deuce was my answer to that question before the last 2 years, to be honest with you. Like, and I always said, like, I don't think he had a better international career than Donovan, but I think if I had to pick one player, if you said, hey, Donovan or Deuce, who you picking tonight? You get them both at their absolute best. I'm always picking Deuce over Donovan. I just am. Like, I watched both of those guys play for the USMNT, and I don't want to throw shade at Donovan. He was so good, but I just always thought Deuce was better in big moments and better in big games. I really did. And it's tough to say. Landon Donovan, you know, like scores that goal, right? But like, if you go back to it, there's a lot of things that were, you know, that happened to create that goal he scored against the African nation. Who did he score that goal against in 2010?
Algeria.
Algeria, right? Yeah. But like, if you go back, like Donovan Dempsey actually kind of created that goal. Like he created the havoc that led to the save that led to the Donovan goal. So like, I don't want to hate on Donovan, but like my point is like Deuce just was always that dude. Yeah. I think what I'm seeing out of Prime Pulisic right now is a higher level player though. But it's a good argument. And I think if you're listening to this or watching, get in the comments, man, and let us know who you take. Deuce, or if you're taking Deuce, you're taking Donovan, you're taking Pulisic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. By the way, Andrew Barr said this is his team: Howard, Beasley, Pope, and Bocanegra. Tony Sana at right back. He's got Bradley as a defensive mid. He's got West at the 8. He's got Dempsey, Donovan at the attacking mid and the wing. He's got Pulisic. And then for his striker here, he says Brian McBride with Ronaldo and Altidore. I can't hate on that either.
Totally fair.
All right. So as we wrap this up for tonight, we got to finish with the very last category. And I saved this one as the end piece. Who is going to be your coach for this all-time 11?
Berhalter. No, sorry for anybody out there that likes Berhalter. Berhalter isn't my coach. Who is my coach? It has to be somebody who's coached the USMNT.
Yes.
Pochettino at a World Cup or no? I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, when is can I ask this caveat? Are we talking about the 2026 World Cup, or are they playing in the 2002 version?
By the way, here's the thing, man. If you want to rock Pochettino, I'm not going to hate it. He is currently the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. So guess what? He counts.
He's probably the choice. But if I had to pick somebody who's coached a World Cup, and there's not that many names there, just to be honest, like we're not talking about like a plethora.
So you have Bora Milutinovic, you got Steve Sampson, you got Bruce Arena, Bob Bradley, and Jurgen Klinsmann, and Greg Berhalter.
Bob Bradley's probably my choice, to be honest. I mean, Poch is actually my choice, but if I have to do one, I mean, I think Bob Bradley. If we're talking about if we could go back to 2002, the game was just way different. I think
Bruce Arena. This dude says Brecky.
Yeah. I think Bruce Arena was like very well suited for 2002 or 98. Right. I really do. I think what he did tactically was like great for that era. He would get destroyed right now. Like he just tactically stinks. And that's not even a hating on him. Like we've seen that with like Jose Mourinho was like, the best manager in the world for like 8 years. And he's like everything he does now, he just hasn't evolved and it just doesn't work very well. Right. And like,
correct. Well, so because he's in Turkey right now, and there's a good argument that he actually might get fired from Fenerbahce.
Correct. Jose Mourinho has not been good in a long time. Like he hasn't. I mean, it's been really bad for a long time, and he's slowly down because.
Do you count his FA Cup and EFL Cup with Manchester United? You know what I mean? It's like,
well, the thing about Jose is he can always kind of figure out how to compete in the cup competitions.
Yeah.
Especially like here's the cheap thing about the England Cups is if you play your absolute best team at Man U, you have a really good chance because nobody else is going to play their best teams until like the semis or maybe even finals, honestly. So like he would like go all out for those, right? And this as a Tottenham fan, like Tottenham for years would be going all out for those and not be able to get them, which sucked. As somebody who also is kind of an ad hoc Tottenham fan, it sucked to see them not win those. But anyway, like I go Bradley because I think Bradley is kind of the best mix of like man manager and like I think he could still probably figure out the modern tactics of the game, especially in a knockout tournament context.
By the way, I'm still a little upset that Daniel Levy fired Jose Mourinho on the eve of the EFL Cup final. I believe it was in 2021. He fired him right before a final.
Right. That's actually what he's
by the way, Jose Mourinho was the right coach at the right time for Tottenham Hotspur. It just so happens that he had the wrong type of players that play his system, and they weren't ready to go all out for him. I digress. To your point about Bruce Arena, though, and you're going to be proven right because he just got hired at San Jose. He's now the head coach, technical director with the San Jose Earthquake, and the problem is this isn't the LA Galaxy circa 2006. You know what I mean? Or 2008. This is the modern era of Major League Soccer, and it's completely different from his heyday at LA Galaxy. And you're absolutely right. Tactically, he will be exposed at San Jose. But for me, it's easy. It's Jurgen Klinsmann. Jurgen Klinsmann to me was, and it will change come World Cup 2026. So that will change. Because I have a strong feeling that Mauricio Pochettino is going to do some very good things with this team in the games that matter. Call me crazy, but I just happen to think that there's going to be a deep run in 2026. But when I think about the modern age and the pragmatism that's needed in today's football, especially in the big tournaments, Jurgen Klinsmann understands that. But the also thing is, I'm also going to go on record and say that we would have qualified for 2018 if they didn't fire Jurgen Klinsmann. That's not it's the interesting thing about it was our squad at that time knew all those players knew exactly where they stood with Jurgen and knew exactly what they were expected from Jurgen Klinsmann, and then to have that ripped out from underneath them and to have Bruce Arena. And Bruce Arena had problems with a lot of those guys. And a lot of them were personal issues from back in the day. We were talking about Clint Dempsey. Clint Dempsey had a big problem, and he had a big problem with Arena. And tactically, the game had passed him up by 2018. And he was still playing his 4-4-2 system. And you know what I mean? Like it was, not only did the players not buy in, but there was a lot of ego that he couldn't handle it. And I still, to this day, firmly believe that if Jurgen Klinsmann had not got fired, his team would have competed in the 2018 World Cup. Now, how they would have done, who knows? They possibly could have got grouped into 2018, but I still think they would have qualified. And I think for this exercise, the obvious answer is Mauricio Pochettino. I don't think you and I can disagree on that, and especially considering that your team has an eye with defense, but it also has some good attacking in mind. It's just all attack. You know what I mean? All it is just straightforward attack. And I think Mauricio Pochettino given these starting 11s would probably rule and probably win a World Cup. I still to this day believe that the 2014 team was the best World Cup team we ever had. I understand 2002, I get it. But when you talk about talent, overall total talent, the 2014 team to me was the best team we ever had. And if things broke right, could one of those teams win a World Cup? Maybe. But I still believe that 2014 was the year that we probably should have gotten to a quarterfinal. If everything broke right, that was the team that could have at least gotten to a quarterfinal.
The issue, right, is that like you're kind of a victim of your group in the World Cup. Everybody is, or you're a beneficiary of your group, and like we were a victim of the group, because we definitely like there's a lot of groups, if you look at that World Cup, where we had a much better chance to win. I'm not saying we would have, but we would have had a much better chance to win the group in 3 or 4 of those groups than we did there, or you just get the right matchup like we did in 2002, right? We got Mexico. So familiar. We beat Mexico. We just beat Mexico in World Cup qualifying. Like, it's just such a nice matchup to get to the, to the quarterfinal, and it's like, if that 2014 team gets a like matchup like that, if we draw Mexico, right? Like we could beat Mexico in the World Cup in 2014 easily, way easier than Belgium, like that would have been a way more winnable game. So, yeah.
Andrew Barr says 2010 would have been if Jones and Davies were healthy. True, except I have a problem with that though, just because I was never a fan of Bob Bradley. Bob Bradley was your token defense counter-attacking type of team.
That's my kind of guy. Sorry,
like don't get me wrong,
this is where you and I will probably disagree based on your team. I just don't think the USMNT at any point in time it can think about competing for a World Cup without being defensive and practical, including now. I just don't think I don't think it's possible. I really don't. And there are a lot of people who disagree with me on that. And I think that's why Bob was so good, is because I think he set us up exactly how you have to be set up. And I think there's a lot of things. I think the 2014 team was way superior than the 2010 team. I just do like, I think Dempsey was better. I think we had Jermaine Jones. I mean, you can go through line by line there, but like we had a better team in 14 than we did 10 person for person. The best I've ever seen us play is at the Confederations Cup. Like that's the best I've ever seen us play against high level teams. And Bob Bradley's the guy who set us up to play like that. And that's why he always gets the nod for me. I think Jurgen's a totally fair shout. He set us up extremely well to get out of the group of death in 2014. He did about as well as you could do to get us out of that. And honestly, he did about as well as you could do with that team versus Belgium. And he set us up pretty practical as well, to be honest. Like at the end of the day, he always set us up practical against high level groups. But
so hey, by the way, and that's the reason why I think we're going to do well at the 2026 World Cup, because now it's the second cycle for this group. It's the second World Cup, and it's always the second World Cup where you actually see the best results with a young group. And if you think back to 2014 with the golden age of Belgium, with Kevin De Bruyne and Romelu Lukaku. Now, I'm not comparing any of our players to those guys, but if you remember Belgium at the 2014 Cup, and then you remember them at the 2018 Cup, where they get to a semifinal. And that's why I think 2026 is going to be a special year, because now this is going to be the second time these guys have gone through a cycle, and we're on home soil.
You can't overestimate Pot A as well. Like you just can't overestimate getting that alone is worth so much. Like you're not going to get another top 10 team in the world. You're going to get that second tier team being the second team in your group. And it's just, unless you get massively, there always is one Pot B who actually is like a top 6 team. But unless you get really unlucky, you hopefully are going to get like, once again, it's not like it's not like an auto win, but it's a way easier game than being like, damn, we're in Brazil's group, or damn, we're in Germany's group. Like that sucks, It's like, okay, we get, whatever second tier country you want to name, but yeah.
Right. Anthony says we need better keepers this cycle, 100%. And by the way, his name is Gaga Slavina. Just saying. All right. So that's going to do it for us. I want to thank Adam. Thanks you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Is there any last things you want to say before we go?
No, this was fun, man. I'm with you. I would
Yeah.
love to see. I wish this fantasy could actually exist. I'd love to see the kind of teams we built actually play out.
Yeah.
Now we just got to wait for our guys to all develop into that level of player in the next couple of years, and hopefully we can actually fill the team somewhat close to it. But we'll see.
I don't know. Like, I want to know what people think, right? So my attacking four again was Christian Pulisic on the left, Donovan at the 10, McBride at the on the right side, and Dempsey up top. And then you were your
I was Rain at the 10 and flanked by Pulisic on the right, Donovan on the left with Dempsey up top.
Dempsey up top. So let us know exactly how you guys have it. Let us know what your starting 11 would be. Drop them in the comment section. Remember, hit the like and subscribe button. And yeah, turn on the notification bell to keep your you current with all our content. And Anthony says he doesn't like the Josie pick, so
I don't think either of us picked Josie though, right?
No, we didn't pick Josie. We shout him out though for honorable mention.
Yeah, shouting him out is like but I mean I agree with it. Like he's not when it comes to longevity, right? He actually, if you did this based on like a career, Josie's pretty low, to be honest, because
Josie's
his career ends up being pretty crappy, but. At his best, go watch the 09 Confederations Cup, man.
Yeah.
At his best, he was pretty freaking good.
And also remember, do not sleep with your teammate's wife. That's not something you want to do.
Just good life.
Shout out. By the way, shout out to Eric Winalda. He's a great guy. All right, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you again, man. And we'll see you soon. Oh, by the way, we do have live streams coming up for the MLS Cup playoffs. We're going to return with the second round. At the conclusion of this, we have a first round recap with Jeff Legason from Prost International. And then we have Seattle versus LAFC in the next round. And of course, whoever Miami's playing in the next round as well, too. So thank you guys again. I look forward to those live streams. Plus, we have USMNT live streams coming up as well, too, because we have a Nations League quarterfinal to cover. So check it out, man. Thanks for stopping by. Good night.